My best and unfortunately most depressing analogy for what our society has unknowingly become for our government is that we are all like soldiers. And like our soldiers, we are left with next to no opportunity to question our roles or actions in this government, which the decision is made by the higher-ups. We can mostly only blindly follow or complain loudly. But I'm compelled to ask you now, what's to stop us from representing ourselves in an updated, highly secured fashion if we already do that every day in our social media platforms through the simple click of a button? If our party was successful in establishing a new group, a new tribe that held its own representatives, then here would be my first 4 questions or voice complaints that I'd put up for us to vote on while taking aim at improving our government at the state and national level. The first one being, once our tax money goes to the IRS, why can't we prioritize or allocate which parts of the government we care for most to receive specific amounts of our tax money? For example, I wish I could put portions of my taxes toward public housing, technology and research development, as well as public transportation. But what about you? Would you choose to want the ability of placing your taxes where you care for most, instead of others choosing it for you? My second question starts with a statement, but it's time to for real let we the people express how we feel about both healthcare and climate change protocols. Why is it wrong to let the majority vote decide how we deal with these incredibly huge money-driven topics? In the end, it affects all of us because we will be the ones who have to pay more money on to continue living safely in the future. Our representatives have let us down over and over with all their bickering back and forward in both of these life-changing arenas. So it should truly be our turn now to speak on this as a majority instead of passively watching as our representatives waste more and more of our time and money with their snail's pace behavior that we've seen over the past 6 months and of course much longer. So here's the third depressing question, which we already all know the answer to. But how much money and effort have we seen our government put into racially charged issues like the KKK violence in Virginia, or initiating secondary investigations on corrupt police officers who have been found to brutally beaten or killed hundreds of unarmed innocent Americans, the same as any other murderer, and then got away free like nothing happened at all? The inexcusable answer to that question being absolutely zero effort for this issue, which is of the most extreme type to a paying American's precious life. We can only act like children throwing tantrums as we allow our government to continue to turn a blind eye and instead turn and questionably aim their focus at something like a plant like marijuana. Something natural put on this earth by God or through evolution, no different than us. And this is outright silly because the naturally occurring plant, more natural than beer or cigarettes, is legal to some capacity in more than half our country's states. And yet, the federal government, or more like individuals in the federal government, still feel it's worth to step in and demonize it by making it illegal on a national level, affecting all of us for seemingly intangible reasons. And yet, it's not worth it for them to do anything about the horrible racism that's just going to continue to run rampant. We all recognize something about our government's priorities feels clearly wrong and kind of openly racist at times. And yet the majority of us Americans who feel horrible about this can do next to nothing to implement laws against issues like this that will continue to plague us by further dividing our society apart. It's time that our cries for justice and change on unarmed killings of the racial type stop falling on deaf ears, but instead have our tax money and voice thoughts create legitimate action that holds these violent, prejudice-holding citizens accountable. This cannot continue to happen, and it's solely up to us to fix it. Here's my last question, which I feel should actually be one of the very first tasks our party tries to eliminate, due to its existence undermining the value of our truest form of democracy. And that question is, how is the Electoral College vote, which won the current president his election over the top of our majority vote, still deemed relevant and necessary when we can all decide and communicate with each other instantly now and are connected in a way that didn't exist over 250 years ago? I mean, seriously ask yourself now, how can a few hundred people have the power over hundreds of millions of us? And this still sound like an acceptable form of democracy for you all, fellow Americans. We need to break free from the chains of the past, because when our choices aren't ever actually our own, where's the freedom in that with systems like these in place? Wake up and recognize in this country that we call the land of the free, the system in which we live in and govern ourselves is tying us down and needs a serious update. And the Hopien Party is that update here and now, if we choose to make it so. It's time to stand up and understand we are not just a society of soldiers marching blindly. We are all equal humans that each deserve to feel special right here in this moment of time. And we no longer have to feel so excluded from our system, because with this we can finally make our own choices and can truly have hope for the future beginning now.